Hello, I'm Marcia Ogden. Welcome to my podcast, Directory of a Dream Life 50 Plus. It's for anyone who's passed that milestone, like me, by a long chalk, and who, like me, has realised that we could be on this earth for another 30 or 40 years. So let's plan to make the rest of our life the best of our life. Before we get started with this week's episode, can I just remind you to please review, share and subscribe to the Directory of a Dream Life 50 Plus podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. And if you do want to plan to make the rest of your life the best of your life, take a look at www.googleit.com/my-best-life and find out more about My Best Life Journal and workshops. Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the Directory of a Dream Life 50 Plus podcast. This one's called Your Guide to Decluttering Part 2. I do hope you've had an amazing week. I've been busy with acting work, role play work, which is always draining but very enjoyable. At the end of last week, I did have the pleasure of being a guest speaker at a Wigan Rotary Club event. So thanks to them for making me feel very, very welcome. I've also finally got round to adding a testimonial page to the website, which you can view if you want to, and that's at www.googleit.com/testimonials. So if you have bought my Best Life Journal, or you've attended one of my presentations or my workshops, or you've been a guest on this podcast, I'd very much appreciate your feedback to add to that page. So just drop me an email at marcia@googleit.com. All the links are in the show notes. And of course, if you're a regular listener to this podcast, please review us on whatever platform you're listening to, or listening on, even. And now I'd like to just do a little plug for my next speaking engagement. Remember when I spoke in Las Vegas at the Her Story Women's Global Empowerment Conference in September last year? September? Or was it July? It was last year anyway. Well, it's coming to the UK. And I'm very happy to be speaking and hosting a workshop there next weekend. Her Story UK is going to be at Ashley House in Berkhamsted, Hertfordshire. So if you fancy an inspirational couple of days, come on down. There's a link in the show notes to full details. Now, within 3 days of being out there, last week's episode, Your Guide to Decluttering Part 1, which was the first part of my interview with Brenda Mason, became the most listened to episode of the Directory of a Dream Life 50 Plus podcast so far. And if you listened, you'll remember that we heard how Brenda went from a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house to a camper van in just 31 days. So in this second part, we discussed the strategies we could use to approach and cope with that overwhelming chore of decluttering. And you'll also hear the tale of Brenda's own estate sale. Here's this week's handy life hack. If you've got light coloured carpets in your house and you spill a cup of coffee onto it, did you know that if you pour beer on there, yes, beer, wait 5 minutes, you'll be able to just sponge it off? It's a bit like that red wine, white wine tip, isn't it? Who knew? Here's part 2 of my chat with Brenda Mason, and we're picking up just where Brenda's explaining how she downsized into that tiny space.
I have a Suburban, kind of a larger car, and I went and I bought a 5x8 cargo trailer. They're like little trailers that contractors use or whatever.
Right, yeah.
So technically I actually downsized to 40 square feet, cubic maybe, because it was like 5 feet across, 8 feet wide, 5 feet tall, with a little bit of overflow into my Suburban. And that was it. because that's whatever was in that was what I was driving back.
Yeah.
So you talked about clothing earlier. My closet, my master bedroom closet with my stuff in it was larger than my bus.
Right.
My kitchen I had at the time was larger than my whole bus. And
Yeah.
both of those things were filled. Plus I had all this other stuff. So I gave myself the 31 days because I didn't want to have to spend another month or 2 months. I just knew.
Yeah.
So and then she would be graduating. She was going to be going off to college. Originally, when I made the decision at the end of March, and I had them, like April to figure some stuff out, she was coming back to Virginia. Well, she spent a weekend at her dad's, and I still don't to this day know, but she all of a sudden decides she's going to a different college.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd already put everything in motion, telling my parents I was coming back.
Right. Yeah.
And my whole family was thrilled because I'd been in Utah for 15 years. So I had missed all my cousins' children growing up and my parents. And it's good that I came back when I did. And I had land. I had land in Virginia that I did keep throughout. And so I had land, and I got the bus for like a ridiculous price, $1 actually. And it was already, I'm a wheeler dealer. That's another reason I've got so much, but not by like, just the people had kept the bus on my property for the time I was gone, and they had used it and traveled in it. And it's like an old Greyhound bus that they've totally redone anyhow. And so I thought, I knew they'd been trying to sell it. I figured it already sold. It's lovely. I mean, it's kind of dated, it had a little brass in it, darker wood kind of thing. Everybody wants maple and natural and whatever, but that's okay. That didn't matter to me. It didn't leak. It worked anyhow. And I called and I asked, and they're like, no, we haven't sold, because everyone says pop outs, so sliders these days, it's just an old bus. So anyhow, they said, thank you for all the time we've been able to keep it on your property. And I thought, everybody's familiar with it being there, so it's not like it just shows up, because I couldn't get legality answers in the county that I was in at the time on sizing and whatever. But I thought, it's been there all this time. Yeah. So I kind of skirted that just a little bit. But I've been there almost 5 years, and it hasn't been a deal. I pay my personal property tax on it. So anyhow, I met them at the, when I got back, I met them at the Division of Motor Vehicles. We paid $1, exchanged $1. So I changed the title. I have the title for it free and clear. And so I got it for $1. Wow. And I prided myself all my life. I prided myself on not ever having a storage unit, because I think that that's a lot of money that goes out that could go to other things. Yeah. But realistically, my home was my storage unit. Yeah. And every time I moved, the house had to be big enough to hold all my stuff. I remember at one point right after the divorce, somebody said, why don't you move into a smaller place? And I'm like, well, the girls are used to a big place. I had 2 large Alaskan Malamutes at the time that I did the sledding and all that with. And anyhow, so it's taking me back here. So they, but anyhow, so, but there were some properties I couldn't take because it wouldn't hold my china cabinet because the ceilings weren't as high, or, I was paying almost my entire earnings for a home to fit all my stuff. Yeah. And to be in a good neighborhood and stuff too. But so technically, I have had storage units like the past 30 some years. It was a house.
Do you live in the bus?
I do. I've been living mostly off grid. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I moved in June 19th. I arrived back in Virginia on June 17th. I moved the bus where I wanted on the property. And my parents are on the property as well. It's 15 acres. And that way I still have my own place, but I'm close enough if they need me, because I am an only child. So I'm like the one to help them if they need help. Mm-hmm. And so I've been mostly off grid, and it'll be 5 years this June. Yeah. That's when I turned 60. So I'm not really too much ahead there, but I'll be 60 in June. Yeah.
That's amazing, because what I do is all about reminding people our age that you're not too old to change. You think, I'm set in my ways, or you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You blinking well can. And if you it's all down to, like you said, your mindset, changing the way you think, developing that decluttering muscle. Yes. Which is something that I need to do. When you help people, I know you say you've got an online course and you've written a book, which we'll put all the links in the show notes. Yes. But when you help people, I know you mentioned very sort of fleetingly earlier that you can only help, say, 8 people Is that because you help them personally?
Yes, if I actually go into somebody's home and to
you
help them.
do that, yeah.
Yeah. And for me too, when I was getting ready to do this and I had to do it so quickly, I didn't want anybody else helping me. I didn't want anybody else to see my stuff and know that this organized all together, let's get it all done person, which is how most people back there knew me as. I didn't want, there's like 3 or 4 rooms in the house that, people usually close the doors when you have people over.
Oh, we've got some of those as well.
Yeah. Well, we always had a junk room when I was growing up. So I don't know. But, I'd walk with my stuff down the hallway and put it in, close the door. I'm organized, I'm decluttered, but I knew in the back of my mind the piles there. The other thing I wanted to share with you too, growing up, I had there was a doll that my mom, a lot about my mom I know, but that her mother had given her. It was like a Cinderella doll. We used to put certain things on the bed when we were little growing up, kind of decorate our own little beds. And so anyhow, when I got married at 22 and we moved overseas, and I still had my Cinderella. It was like a Cinderella doll, glass slippers, the whole bit, big doll you put on the bed.
Right. Yeah.
So I put that, and it was old. I put it into my little storage, my coat chest thing. And when I was finally, my oldest daughter at the time was 23. My youngest was just 18. And I was going through, I had to go through everything, and I opened it up, and I had that Cinderella doll that I had tucked away because I was going to give it to my daughters. Well, my oldest daughter was already going to her first job out in, another state on the West Coast. They never saw it. We save these heartstrings or the things for one day and what if. Yeah. And then they're just gone. So I did keep it for them to see it and whatever, and have whatever they wanted to do with it. But I think I got way off on what you're saying, but that was something I usually like to share with people. I put things away. People hold it for a rainy day. And my grandmother used to do that. She'd put all of our beautiful things we'd give her, and we knew she'd open up, she'd love it. She'd gingerly wrap it back up.
Yeah. And think,
put it away.
Like you say, you should live for today, because tomorrow isn't promised, is it?
Right. No, it's not. And we can, I went to a tiny house festival. I'd been back for 2 years. People did not understand that I was living in a bus and why I'd want to be without running water. It's by choice. I have all that capability. I just don't do it. And it's just easier not to. But I went to this tiny house festival, and I was like, I'm going to be surrounded by my people. And I was so excited. Yeah. They're going to get me. Yeah. And there weren't speakers or anything at this one. And I went, and the lines were, huge lines. Everybody's talking. And it was so fun because people would say, I could do this. Kind of like when you were mentioning to me about going off in the camper or backpacking. And they were so excited. And you could see they're like dreaming of the life they could have and whatever. And then they'd say, but. It's a horrible word at times. But what would I do with all my stuff? And you just see the lights, everything would just shut down. And I'm standing there just screaming to myself, but I did it. I know where you are. I did it for 33 years. Yes. And I know the weight of it. I know all of it. You can do it, So that's why I tell people, don't wait for one day and go ahead and get through it and get it done. And the other thing is, because there's people out there right now waiting for the things that are your empty clutter that could use it. Yeah. And so, but at the tiny house, so I speak at a lot of tiny house festivals. And when you mention about the book, it's actually like the course I go through. There's a little bit of my story there, but then I have us do the Oasis. I give ideas of the resources. You have to know your own, because I don't know all the places. But that was one of my last clients in a home at the time said, can't you just teach me how to do it in 31 days like you did it? Yeah. And I thought, oh, okay. And so then I put an online course together, because I can go on like you and I are talking today, but we can walk through the course in the book. Yes. And then people can come back and they can post their questions. They're stuck or their victories or whatever, and you can see it, that type of thing. And you do kind of need somebody to help with that a little bit, I think. And so some people can do it on their own. Some people want somebody to do it with them, but at a distance. That's cool. I can do that. Get ready to open a membership just to kind of help people a little bit more, because my course only opens a couple times a year. And but the course is good for people that are getting ready to sell their house, or their parents are getting ready to move into a living assisted place or whatever. They don't have a lot of time. You don't have the luxury of a year to get it done. Sometimes you have to like boom and get it done. Yeah. And even
but I think it's knowing how to think, because we're stuck in our ways. And it's like we met, we were talking earlier, we came across each other because we were both commenting on a post in Kathy Eckhart's group, and Kathy was a guest on this podcast a couple of weeks ago. You were commenting on the post as well, and it was about somebody who'd downsized and got rid of all their stuff by holding an open house. They'd done drinks and nibbles and invited friends and family around to take what they liked. And I thought, wow, now I don't know whether it's just I don't know about that or whether it's something we don't know about in England, because I've never come across that before. And if I was downsizing, I would think, what a fantastic idea, I'll do that. But I could never have thought of it on my own, I don't think.
Right.
So it's just knowing what the options are, isn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes it's just thinking outside the box. If because I love, like I told you earlier, I love yard sales, garage sales. I'd never been to an estate sale. I didn't know anything about that.
How does an estate sale work?
Well, so an estate sale, I finally went to one, and it's like an estate company will come in, like if usually it's when somebody's passed away. So, and in my mind, I thought, my old life is passing away. I can get away with this and do it. I didn't think I'd hurt anybody. So now I think they do living estate sales. So it's just like having a great big sale inside your house. I knew what I was going to take back. I had a 5 by 8 by 5 foot tall space in my closet, actually, because I knew that's all I could take. So if I was taking something, I had to fit in that space. So I taped that off. The rest of the house was totally open. And the reason I did that instead of a yard sale or garage sale is, I don't know if you're familiar with how it works over there, but here you open up your door and you say, no early birds, nobody shopping beforehand. But as soon as you open your door and you put the first thing out, everybody descends upon you. Well, it was just me, and it was safety, and I didn't know about weather. Or I was still in the mountains. Weather-wise, you never know if it's going to rain or snow. And I'd given myself the 30. I had 31 days before. I promised Alex we wouldn't be doing it while she graduated, and like 2 or 3 days after that, we were gone. So anyhow, so the estate sale. It helped me because if it was 2:00 in the morning and I wanted to go through jewelry or whatever, I could do that, and I could just lay it all out and stage it everywhere in my house. It would just be open. And so I knew what I was keeping and what I wasn't. And then I had to go and tag everything, like with the sale price. And I had to put a price on everything, because you can't say everything on this table's $1, because somebody may take your $500 piece, or something. Right, so you have one place where people come in, but when it's over and everybody leaves, you can close the door and lock it. You don't have to move stuff in and out. So I had a couple friends. I did it for 3 days. I had people to come and kind of keep eyes on the house with me. I had somebody for security that had a security background at the door for the money, and I handled all the money. And it was, in some ways, I was almost numb because nobody knew it was my stuff. They thought I was a brand new estate sale company. So I did a really good job. I had one other lady give me some tips, but they didn't know it was my stuff, and I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want people, haggling and digging at me. So they asked for my cards. It was kind of fun, but it was interesting because people said, because I mentioned that I had 2 Alaskan Malamutes. Well, I did sledding with them. I did the show dogs stuff with them. I groomed them. Right. So I had all this stuff. So people would be going out and they'd be talking about the person that used to live with this stuff. Yeah. And the person was a chef. They were a photographer, they were a teacher, because I had all this craft stuff. I had girls, and so all this stuff. So it's interesting to hear it. Yes. And some people, and this person was a collector of certain items. And there was one guy that came in with big old dreadlocks, his whole thing. And because I had lots of stuff to prove I was a chef, I had 2 Cuisinart, like mixer, grinder, all this stuff. And he was thrilled to death. And he said, I hope this is going to work, because my stuff always burns up. And I said, so we got to talking about it. He needed it for nuts. He was doing his nut butters. But he was filling them all the way to the top. And so in talking, I said, just do it halfway, do it in batches, you'll be fine. So, and for probably about 4 years after that, he keeps in touch every once in a while to tell me how much, But the neat thing is you can see your stuff going out. Some people can't handle that. You just can't do that,
It's almost like you're looking down on your own life. And hearing what people say about you without knowing the truth.
Yeah, it was
really interesting.
It was fun. So I learned a lot. So that's kind of why I say, your stuff does not truly represent who you are. It was getting your bachelor's and your master's and your PhD all in a period of 30 days. It was a crazy time, but it was a really a good time. I just think it's a good way to do it. People get panicked. They're doing it. And I would too. You know, I mean, I spent so much time of my daughters growing up and my married time sending them off with their dad because I'm going to get this house organized. But I was always organizing. Never thought about getting rid of stuff. And there were a couple times that I donated like roomfuls of stuff. We had a lot. We were fairly well off. We had a lot of good stuff going for us at the time. And but it would go out the door, and then I'd bring a whole bunch more stuff back in. And I don't do that anymore. And not just because it's tiny. And I know I keep talking about tiny house, but you can do it in your current home right now. The downsizing and letting decluttering is just your empty clutter that needs to go. You know, you keep your other stuff. I've got one gal that I met, and she had a little over 4,000 books.
Right.
It's a lot of books.
Yeah.
And she let about 3,000 books go. So people hear her say, I've got 1,000 books, and they're like ready to judge and say something. But you can't pay attention to that. She went, but she let a little over 3,000 books go. That's wonderful, but she's got all this other space, and she's got the books that she really wanted to keep. She may decide to go down. She may pick up a couple others, but it's your life. It's your oasis.
Yeah, you
and
can't decide what's important. Yeah,
exactly.
Someone else, but you can guide them. So your online course, can anyone get access to that?
You sure can. The kicker with my online course, which I'm really going back and forth on right now, we just closed the doors on Wednesday. I only open it 3 times a year because I'm right in there with people. So it's not going to open again until May 1st. You'll see it. You can get on my mailing list and you'll know when it's coming up. And I usually offer some kind of special going on with it or bonuses or whatever. But with that said, and because some people just can't do it or don't want to do it in 31 days, even though you have access to it, I'm looking at very soon doing a membership type of course where we're gonna instead of like having 1 or 2 days to get through each little section, we'll have like a week at a time, and it's a little bit more doable for people that are working full time and have mom or children, that type of thing.
But we can get your book anytime, can't we?
Absolutely.
Is the book on Amazon?
It sure
we'll
is.
Get the link
and
from you.
If you go on and you type in Oasis, that's my big deal. Oasis, Brenda, it'll pop right up. My picture's on the front. And I did send the book title. It's funny. My book is all about decluttering, and my title is like massive words, but people will need it to know. So it is the 31-day guide to creating your clutter-free home oasis. Right. It's a lot to remember, but if you just put in Oasis,
but it does what Brenda, it says on the tin.
So Brenda and Oasis, the Smaller Living Huge Life. I've got the Downsizing 31. I'll take you to the same place. The book is on my website. You can click there. It'll take you right to Amazon, right to my page.
And you've created a download, haven't you, for podcast listeners?
Yes, I did. And the link I gave you, so you'll be putting that down below. And what it is, it's that little resource page that I talked about at the beginning. It just has like the person's name you talked to. You might be on the web, you might be talking on the phone, you might be on the internet, but if you keep a page for each place you talk to, then when you get into your decluttering, you think, now who was that antique dealer that I talked about, and what days are they doing? You've got it right there. It's one time, have your record and be done, because you want to be systematic and go with it. Brilliant. So it's just a little sheet, but it's a start. And I think you need to know where you're going to, the places you'd like to have your empty clutter go before you ever start. Because then when you hold that item that is empty clutter for you, and you got to let it go. But if you know where it's going to go, it's so much easier.
That's right. Because you've got a purpose for it then, haven't you?
And you know what? If you're holding on to something and you just can't let it go, don't. It's okay. It's okay to be kind to yourself and to do that. And but you will come across, if you're doing something, once again, if you're in clothing and you pull out like a piece of antique jewelry that belonged to so-and-so in a pocket, don't let that, trying to make a decision on it, paralyze you and stop you from going. You take that, and it's let's say it's a heartstring, because that's easier to say. You put that aside. You don't do heartstrings until like day 23 in this thing. It's towards the end.
So don't deal with it now.
You put it aside. And even in your clothing, if you're going through your clothing and you get to something that feels good, I like it, I'm not so sure, I don't know, put it aside. Even papers, I don't care what it is, whatever it is you're working on, you can't make a decision on it, put it aside and continue through what you're working on. Don't let that one paralyze you in the first 10 minutes of working. If you have to take breaks, it's okay. But then at the very end of it, sometimes you'll pick it up. I don't even know why that bothered, why I couldn't figure that out. This has to go, or I'm definitely keeping it. That's okay. But you don't want to get stuck. You don't want to get paralyzed. You don't want to get overwhelmed. And it's real easy to do. I prayed like every 5 minutes for a couple of days there, and I'd walk out of where I was and go watch a food cooking show or something. Then I'd get hungry and I need to eat. It's kind of like I need the next thing. But then I'd have to get back because I only had a certain amount of time. So it helps. And it's nice to have accountability. Somebody's, going to do whatever. So, and you go through everything. You make your decisions. I'm not going to tell you can't have it.
I just wanted to ask you a question that I ask most of my guests.
Okay.
And that is, if you met the teenage Brenda now and she could see you, what do you think she might be proud of? And what do you think she would wish that you had done differently?
I'm going to start with the differently first and end with the positive, just because I've got that one pretty solid down. I think she would say, she would remind me to believe in myself and to not have backed down, to lower myself for other people's approval. I don't mean to say that in a bad way, but to truly have been true to myself. And when I had the flags that things were not right, I would say to have trusted my decisions. I think the proud part would now be that even though I've made some poor decisions in my lifetime to a point, but we all learn from those and we grow. Yes. So I think they would be the most proud that I still got back up, that I finally came back around and I make decision, never anything to hurt somebody, but I make good decisions for myself and I'm finally liking myself and living confidently within my skin is huge. So even though my daughters, may have thought, because I was very convinced I wasn't good enough and I always needed somebody else there with me. And I'm hoping that now that what they will take from me is that still land on your feet and can't change the past, but you can move forward positively from today forward.
It's been fantastic talking to you. I know we've spoken for a long, long time. It's been so interesting because decluttering is something that we all talk about and laugh about, but when you seriously come to do something about it, you think,
we paralyze out.
How the hell am I going to do it?
Yeah.
And
so I've given you good starting places and to go forward. People are more than welcome to reach out.
I just need to say thank you very much, Brenda. And we will hopefully keep in touch.
Thank you so much for having me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you'd like to access the free download that Brenda promised, the link is in the show notes. Before I sign off for this week, here's the answer to last week's quiz along with this week's quiz question. The answer to last week's quiz is 1971. If you want to know what the question was, listen back to episode 34. And here's this week's quiz question. The line, "Houston, we have a problem," or "Houston, we have a problem," was famously uttered aboard which troubled spaceflight? Have a fantastic last week of January, and I'll see you next time. The Directory of a Dream Life 50 Plus podcast is created and produced by me, Marsha Ogden, and it's available on several platforms, as well as via our website. So please keep listening and tell your friends all about it. Do follow us on Instagram and Facebook too. You'll find all the relevant links in the show notes. Directory of a Dream Life 50 Plus is about making our life happier and easier. So if you do have suggestions or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, just drop me a line at marsha@googlit.com. Have a fantastically happy week and I'll see you next time.